This week I've been dealing with street children and the issues they face whilst out on the street in the local town. And it's a difficult subject to talk about. These boys and girls are not only homeless and hungry, not only have no one to love them, nowhere to sleep, no food in their bellies, often covered in various different types of fungal infections and stuff because of lack of hygiene. Get involved with drugs, but unbelievably, there's even worse things happen to these boys and girls. This week I had to sit and listen to a child tell me that he had been raped by men in the town. It became such a frequent and regular occurrence that it was no longer abuse and rape to him, it was something that happens. So instead of them having to find him, he would go to where this was going on, to be abused. Because that was his physical contact in life, I guess. That was his routine. The young children who were hitting the streets, these men will then take younger boys to that boy, whilst he does things to that child. And thus the vicious cycle continues. And the only way to stop the cycle is to take the children out. And there's no need for these children to suffer like this. All they need is a place to go. If they had a place to go, somewhere safe, where these men can't get to them, they wouldn't have this problem.
The mark of the beast. This is a topic that was coming up in a lot of discussion, especially around the recent events with the COVID-19 pandemic and the very draconian measures that were thrust upon humanity during the pandemic and everything that was going on with this narrative. Now, if you don't know what the mark of the beast is, there is a passage in one of the most mystical texts of the Bible, Revelation. And in Revelation, it states that humanity will receive a mark at the time of the Antichrist. And this mark will be upon their hand and upon their forehead, upon their brow. And due to this mark, those who receive it will be restricted. They will not be able to move or to buy and sell. And in this story of Revelation, there are angels to be released to take care of this situation, to destroy the world, as it were. And therefore, before those can be released, it is said that 144,000 people must be saved. And for them to be saved, they must receive the seal of Christ. Now, the beast is denoted by a number in the Bible, and that number is 666. And so this mark of the beast and the number of the beast, they are important. They are together. They matter in the mystic understanding. And so I'm going to get onto this. I'm going to explain the mystic side of what all of that means. But before I do, I want to speak into why people think that this is a prophecy that is about to come to pass. At present, due to the measures that were taken around the pandemic, measures that many of us have questioned were excessive and unnecessary, and had an ulterior motive behind them. Many are concerned with the introduction into our consciousness Now you can also argue that, well, it's not even an argument, it's a truth. Human behavior off the back of this pandemic has been altered. We have accepted things like the QR code. We have accepted things like lockdowns, whereas we never have before. We have accepted that you require certain documentation to enter into certain buildings or to fly or to enter into wherever service or municipality you wish to go to. This, whether done intentionally or whether done via planning and intention and control, has altered the greatest resource on planet Earth's behavior, the human mind and human thought. Gold and oil has no value if humans don't value it. The greatest resource is how humans think. And so this alteration in our behavior, this programming of our behavior, this coercion into a new state of being is ongoing. Whether you believe it's intentional or unintentional, it's definitely happening. Those measures have revealed many things regarding the QR code, but one thing that people are concerned about is the RFID chip. A chip that will be implanted in your hand that will give you the ability to, for instance, pay for your groceries. It gives the ability to track where you are at any time, for it's permanently implanted. It's not like a bank card which can track where you are. It's not like a phone. It's implanted, so you can't leave it at home. You can't hide from these detection systems which people argue 5G is going to make completely possible. And so this RFID chip is potentially, people say, the mark of the beast. It will be implanted in you and you will not be able to buy and sell without it. And it sounds like it fits, of course. However, in the mystical context of this story, then many people have already taken the mark, and that's what's important here. I too question the pandemic. Anything that comes up that seems like too much of a coincidence, I question deeply. The religions of the world, some of, have a want to use symbology. They have a habit of it. And they use this symbology as part of their belief system. I noticed recently that the UK has started pushing, for all I'm not there, I see it through family, friends and the media. It started pushing the COVID narrative again. It started pushing it, saying we need to get more people vaccinated and boosted. They were going to do this at Christmas, but randomly, by chance, it would happen. They have changed the date of this new initiative to September the 11th, 9/11. A date which goes down in history due to the attacks on the Twin Towers, where these buildings that had 111 floors were brought down to rubble inexplicably by a jet crashing into it, and also a building right next to them that was not struck by a jet, had no structural damage, also inexplicably fell at freefall speed on that day, World Trade Center 7. I've said before that numerology and the rulers of this world who serve the ruler of this world, Satan, plays a big role in what they do. In September 11th, the towers came down. In 2011, as many were discussing the possibility that the secret societies we speak of, the elitists who are controlling things, had gained dominion over earthquakes using certain weaponry that they had. Randomly throughout that year, earthquakes kept happening on Masonic numbers. 22-211, Christchurch is hit in New Zealand with an earthquake. 11-311, Japan is hit with a huge tsunami caused by an earthquake. 11-411, Spain was hit by an earthquake inexplicably. This makes me question. When I see these numerical numbers that I know have power and significance in the source code, a source code that Satan has hacked, the ruler of this world has hacked, and therefore creates from a state of ignorance at times, for the all-knowingness of Creator knows how to create without ignorance, for it's all-knowing. Satan, by mimicking and dissecting the movement of God, by understanding it through analysis and separation, which is ultimately where the first sin is born, pride, arrogance, separation, is also now mastering creation in the thought patterns of some, in the belief systems of some, but that creation is coming from a place of, in part, ignorance, because it is not all-knowing. I've said it recently that on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, World War II was called off. The armistice began. These are all Masonic power numbers. They are all taking place inside our mainstream world events, major events. And we must look at that as a coincidence and ask what's going on. But one of the things that also goes on is that they use ceremony. The Romans built the Colosseum to ensure that the masses were distracted as they were sending them off to war to benefit the minority, to worship the god of Caesar, the god of whoever the emperor was at the time. So they distracted them with games. And in our modern world, it is also definitely so that we are distracted by games. And some of the ceremonies for these games make you raise an eyebrow. The 2012 Olympics opening ceremony took place in London. London is of profound significance to the New World Order agenda. It always will be, and I'll explain why in a moment. But the 2012 Olympic ceremony was a big deal in the realm of believing that these religions are doing what they are, it would be a big deal to set up what's coming. In that ceremony, a huge puppet that looked like Boris Johnson sat up from an NHS hospital bed. This ceremony was steeped in this strange symbology. Boris Johnson then sits up in the middle of the pandemic on national television in the UK, and everybody believed deeply this pandemic, not even the leader of our country can escape it. We're all in danger. We must do what they say. We're all in this together. Beyond there, Boris Johnson's father in the 80s happened to write a novel about a world being reset by a global pandemic. Coincidences like that, they make me look. They make me alert. They make me ask questions whether the devil and his deceptions is at play. And for all you can never guarantee it, you can at least move into the intuition of spirit and discern for yourself what's going on. So I know that the pandemic is indeed, or has indeed, had an impact on humanity and our behaviour. And there are definitely elements to this that come up that make you think perhaps indeed one of these satanic religions which operate in the shadows and yet control much in our world has had its hand in this. If you look at London, it has the Crown. The Crown of England is a private corporation in the centre of London. This private corporation has its own police force. It is not part of the UK. Washington DC is not a state. It is not part of the United States. The Vatican is not part of anything other than its own sovereign state. The Vatican is the religious centre. The UK, the Crown of London, is the financial centre, and Washington, the war centre, in among the elitist agenda to bring a new world order. This is why the UK has the strongest currency on earth. It has still the highest value, the Great British Pound, because the financial centre is there. The Crown of England is not the Queen. The Crown is the centre of London, where the financial district is based. And so, when you understand this and you see this, you must begin to ask questions and ask, what on earth is going on here? In London, you have the London School of Economics training all of the bankers that go out all around the world and go into huge financial institutions and central banks, and at their door is a plaque of a wolf undressing from sheep's clothing, for they were established by the Fabian socialists. The Fabian socialists believe that a wolf undressing from sheep's clothing is a power. To be a wolf in sheep's clothing, the ends justify the means, is what they believe, so you can manipulate and coerce humanity into your will. This exists. This is at the door of the LSE. That society also started the second largest political party in the UK. And so it's there. Deception is there. It's embraced. It's even displayed for us to see. And so yes, I question the pandemic. I totally question everything about it and the notion of this potential of the RFID chip. It would fit. However, if you believe that the mark of the beast is coming in the future and isn't coming today, you are in trouble. You see, I pointed out during the pandemic often that those who were being irate and angry and fighting and rebelling and saying, I am going to fight this system, I am going to fight this because I don't agree with it, I predicted that all of those people would go quiet as soon as Satan stopped restricting the comfort of their prison cell of worldly desire. Majority, not all, majority. I publicly said this often. Those people, because they're living in a comfortable prison cell based upon worldly desire that Satan's happy to give them, because they have had that restricted, now they rebel. But now that the Antichrist system, we may call it, has allowed them to live life again as usual, nobody is saying anything. The rebellion fire that had them on the streets protesting has gone. And this is a travesty, because they should still be rebelling against that which causes oppression, that which causes deception inside our politics. And that is, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high places. And the only true rebellion that works is not to rebel against the structures that humanity's internal shadowy behaviors have allowed for, but to rebel against the structures within us, to rebel against within us that which allowed us to build these in the first place, that which allowed us to be manipulated or deceived into these states of being on building these things to start with. The true rebellion is always a rebellion of that which is within. The system of control over humanity relies on you never rebelling against that. And that's a fact of our life here. This is just a fact of how it is. And so not all, but it's true, it came to pass that those people, now that they can just indulge back in their worldly lives again and worldly desire, the rebellion is over. And they are not to be seen or heard. But as soon as Satan comes back and restricts their comfortable prison cell, they will rebel again, they will take to the streets. And I say, take to the streets today in the name of Christ, in the name of rebellion against that Satan, that adversary which is making all of this possible. And here lies the story of the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is something that is going on today inside many people's lives. This mark is not something external in the mystic text. In the mystic text, this mark was pointing you to show you that here today you may be held by this mark, and you must avoid it. You must have the seal of Christ, which you can gain today, not in the future, not at the end of time, but now, today, at the end of the flesh state, at the end of the matrix self, the fallen self that is weakened and obedient to a false god of government in many instances. So the number of the beast is 666, and the mark of the beast is on the hand and on the forehead. This number 666 is denoting a negative human consciousness. Now the mystics used numerology, and you have to understand it. In numerology, if you add 6 to 6 to 6, you get 18. But you can't have 18. A double digit never stands in numerology unless it's a master number, an 11 or a 22. And so you must add the 1 to the 8, and now you get a 9. 9 was always used to represent the number of human consciousness. Human consciousness dominated by the flesh, by Satan, is that number of the beast, 666. And of course, those who must be saved by the seal of Christ are also needing to change their consciousness to be in line with Christ. 144,000. 1 plus 4 plus 4 plus the zeros is 9. It's the same thing as saying fire can heat your home or burn it down. It's human consciousness can also help you or it can destroy you. It depends where it goes. Does it go to the seal of Christ, the 144, or does it go to the seal of Satan, ultimately, the 666? Both numbers represent a state of consciousness. Now this number is present and forgotten in other parts of the Bible. In the story of Solomon, in Solomon's temple. Now, Solomon's temple is a story about you. It's about your body, your mind, your ability to walk in spirit. It's not purely some historical character, and we are missing the truth by reflecting it as history or as something that we pursue externally. Reflect it on you. Solomon's temple is built in silence without tools. The temple of God, according to Jesus, is your body. To build Solomon's temple, which I've done a video on before, and you may want to watch it, is to build yourself, to edify yourself into the presence of Christ, so ultimately, in Jesus' words, you walk in spirit. In the story of Solomon, he gives up the temple in exchange for gold amounting to the number of 666. A score is 20. He gave up the temple for the beast nature, 666. He gave up the temple for the fallen nature. He gave up the pursuit of the will of our Creator in that compassionate state of wholeness and unity in exchange for separation and worldly desire. This is what he did, and not many preachers know that that number's even 666, but it is. Some Bibles even give you a dollar amount for that gold. They completely have no idea what this story is about. And so here we have Solomon's disappearance from the temple, shall we say. He turns his back on the temple, on the presence of God, through elevating himself in becoming loving awareness that is not pulled by the mind or by the impulse of the flesh. And he exchanges it to live based upon the impulse of the mind and the flesh in exchange for gold totaling 666, the same as the number of the beast. This is common. Even Jesus says, cast your net to the right side of the boat. And if you know the numerology, which I have studied in my past, hence my mentioning the 11s and 911 and so on, and seeing these patterns that require some questioning around the religious systems who exist in this world and believe upon this as well, then Jesus said, cast your net to the right side and you will catch 153 fish. 1 plus 5 plus 3 is 9. The right always represents spirit side of man, east and right. The right hand of God, the promised land is in the east. Cast your net to the right side. The Magi approached from the east. It always represents the same thing. The spirit side of man is the right and the east. And 153, so when you cast your net to the right, when you allow consciousness from there to be, you will find the positive human consciousness. You will be consciously aware in the Christic loving awareness state. If you cast it to the left and you catch 666 fish, or however many he would denote it to be, then you will live in the negative consciousness. You will live from the flesh. The hand in mysticism is a representative. Now, this is not guesswork. This is a documented language, and it existed throughout history alongside the scriptures. And so you can't just say that's your opinion. This is a fact. If you're going to say that the scripture is a fact, you must agree that the writings next to it that were decoding it at the time it was written are also a fact. And there's a dictionary called Gaskell's Dictionary of Myth and Scripture. Helps you to interpret these. There's many others, but this is a great one. To interpret these sayings. And these sayings matter. Because if today I said to you, I am going to spill the beans, would you think I'm going to share the truth about a secret? Or would you think I'm going to spill some beans? Well, the context matters, of course. If I'm standing with a can of beans, then But if I say it in a certain way, you know it means divulging a secret. These are the dark sayings of the Bible. This is what it says, I will speak in dark sayings. Parables, dark sayings of old. So, if we look at this, the word hand is the self-directed activity. And what that means is, as I've often said here, if you walk by faith, then you walk through a space where you're not analysing your way through life. You're feeling your way through. Your brain is not frantically processing, weighing up, analysing everything. Personal history, personal self, it is not present in this moment, determining the movement of your life. What is present in this moment is a loving awareness state with you that is connecting to God through the subtle whispers of this moment, and that is determining the direction of your life. The hand represents the non-awareness state. It represents doing it through analysis. And in analysis, you do it through separation. For if you analyze reality, you create an analyzer inside you and a subject of analysis outside. There you've immediately created separation from all things, and with it your God, by creating a personal meanness, an image of self based in thought. As Apostle Paul said, you must die and Christ be born. Christ is that unconditioned love that is born in the awakened state in all of our lives. And the you that must die is the personal history and the personal self based in thought. This is how it is. I have gone through it, I've walked in it, I know those moments in my life where I've heard God, which happened daily for me, and I've taken that path, and inexplicable, miraculous things have happened because I did. In that state, the personal history, personal self was definitely absent, it was dead. And that which was speaking and reverberating and lighting up my cells was the Christ, is how I see it, the will of unconditioned love. And so the hand is the analytical, self-directed, personal meanness. That's what it represents in mysticism. So when you take the mark of the beast on your hand, in the mystic context of this, you take the flesh consciousness, and from that state of being, you cannot serve God. You can't, and you can't buy or sell without it. Buying or selling is the directive activity of survival. It's the side of us that must cook and clean and buy and sell and trade and have a profession to provide for ourselves. But this state of being, we require it. But if that state of being is functioning based upon the beast, the 666, the negative consciousness, then that means that if you are sitting today and you have $10,000 in your bank account, if you are driven by the beast, there's nothing you can buy or sell that it won't determine what it is. If you don't have peace and joy and inner love by simply looking at the beauty of the day and nothing more, by simply looking at your children and looking at your wife or whatever it may be, or by giving thanks to God, if you don't have that, then you may have $10,000 and you are going to use that for one purpose, to indulge in your worldly desire, to sustain the pleasure and the sensations of the pleasure that you require because you feel like you live in a void and absence of the presence of God, the love of God, the wholeness of the awakened state. So that $10,000 that you have, you cannot buy and sell on behalf of God. You can't do anything. You can't do anything other than pursue your sin, pursue your worldly desire with it, for that is the foundation of all of your activity. If you, however, are one of the saved who receives the seal of Christ, remember in Revelation, it said that there at the right hand of him, there's that word right, east, is a book sealed up the back with 7 seals. The 7 energy centers of your body are a part of the mystic conversation of Christianity. They understood this. And the endocrine glands and energy centers correlate inside your body. And what it means is that if you live with purity, as a pious life, with righteousness, the vitality, the limited vitality that the universe is allowing for you to have this conscious individual experience as a human being here, part of the collective experience of humanity, then you will keep spending that energy. And you will not be able to break those seals, for when you do not spend that energy, which comes by realizing through grace that you are in the presence of God. When you... Let me pull back a second. Those seals can't be broken until you are reborn. And your rebirth comes through grace. It doesn't come through the hand, through the directive activity of analysis and control. It comes through surrender. It comes through accepting what God has done for you, the forgiveness, the love that God has for you, and allowing in that space the letting go of the analyzer, the one who is separating you from everything that is analyzing, and therefore analyzer, subject of analysis. As you do that, as you let go through grace, there awakens in us the opportunity for us to maintain discipline over sin, missing the mark. And as we do that, we live a more wholesome life. And the more wholesome your life is that you live, the more vitality you retain, for you are no longer selling it into the possession of the god of this world, the ruler of this world, Satan, through sin or missing the mark. As you retain that vitality, you retain the energy that is given to you to fulfill the destiny of God's will for your life, shape, form, human body that you are, soul that you are within there. You maintain that vitality, and as that vitality raises, it will elevate itself and you will overcome the five senses being your master. Goliath and David took 5 rounded stones and he hit the giant here. The 5 senses were conquered and the energy rose to defeat the 666 nature, which is represented by Goliath in that story, by bringing the energy to here. It comes to here through grace, not through self-effort. It's by God's grace. For I have anointed you with the oil of gladness, which anoints here, for you have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. The seals are broken in Revelation. Now the mark of the beast is on the hand, the self-directed activity, the analysis state, constantly thinking and trying to suss out life, constantly toiling and struggling inside your mind, instead of just flowing with peace and the subtle whisper of your Creator coming through the intuitive body. And of course the mark here is that your energy can't reach here. It cannot reach here. As David struck the giant here, his energy reached here by dealing with the 5 senses being his master. In Revelation, the right hand, the hand, that is marked with the beast, that is marked with the mark of the beast, it cannot continue to be marked without atrophying this. For you will spend your vitality, which would give birth to your connection to Christ, by having the energy symbolically here. This is what it represents. And so today, many of you will be taking the mark of the beast. It's not coming in the form of a chip. It's already here. It's coming because you're addicted to food, to pornography, to endless entertainment, that you're filled with anger and you've got no forgiveness, and all of this is expressing the 666 consciousness in your life. And many of you will never break the seals. You will never know Christ, therefore, because you will constantly spend the rest of your life spending your vitality in exchange for worldly desire, so you can sit comfortably in your prison cell, or, as many are, you can sit uncomfortably in your prison cell, for many are miserable inside of there, many are not happy. And so the mark of the beast is present. Now inside our world, as I say, coincidences must be investigated. You have a company called Monster Energy. Monster Energy has a logo of a claw mark, 3 claws. If you look at that claw mark and you reflect it upon the Hebrew language, you will see that the claw mark could easily be a 666. And just out of coincidence that we must look at and ask questions about, it would happen that indefinitely, without any doubt, drinking such a drink all the time would drag you into your flesh and into the state of consciousness whereby the 666 is having more ease of controlling you, that state of human consciousness that pursues worldly desire, etc. This company's slogan is "Release the Beast." Unleash the Beast, sorry, I think it is. So they have a logo that looks like 666 in Hebrew. They have a product that definitely drags you into a more flesh, as Jesus would call it, state of consciousness. And their slogan is "Unleash the Beast." And the mark of the beast and the number of the beast is 666. These coincidences, I don't step on them and say this is definitely so, but I do look at them and say there's something a little bit off here. There's something off, even if the makers of that logo say it was purely coincidental. We just created it based off of this. You have no idea what demonic influence the designer or the team designing that had if they have no relationship with God. If they live purely in the dualistic meanness, Satan has access to them. For the carnal mind is enmity to the laws of God, as the Bible says. The state of meanness is not subject to God's law. And so indeed you can create on behalf of Satan and not even believe Satan exists. I've seen it. And so here we have a mystic explanation, if you can digest it, of what that would mean, this mark of the beast. And also that some of you are probably I take that mark by accident often. I'm not perfect by any measure. But I at least know the goal. I know the target every day. And I know when I have gone into it, and I know how to get out of it. Many of you today will be living under that 666, and something, your soul is whispered, and that's why you're here listening to someone like me who has gone through that and seen it. And you're listening because you want to be set free. You're listening because you want true freedom. You don't want the comfortable prison cell. You don't want the fake awakening from the matrix of having all of your worldly desires. You don't want this, I think it's theistic Satanism, enlightenment through perversion or indulgence in worldly desire until you're tired of it. I think that's the term. I may be wrong. What you want is freedom, love, healing, nurturing. And it's yours. Here and now, you are one of the 144,000. There's not a limit on how many can be saved by the seal of Christ. That number is there only to represent that you can alter your consciousness, as the 153 in Jesus casting the net. It can alter your consciousness to be sealed under Christ, to be free from the beast nature and the mark of the beast. And if you don't understand this, then know this. If you take out every secret society, if you take out every world leader today that you believe is behind the problem of this pandemic, and leave behind the uninformed, the uneducated, the unaware of these societies and their religion, in a few hundred years, I guarantee you that Satan will organize laymen, people like you and I, working class people, middle class, he will organize them into positions of power. And he will organize them into secret societies, and he will organize them into situations where they embrace deception as a power, as a tool. And all of that will be made possible because the masses that were left behind when those leaders were eradicated had rebelled externally against the structures that were created by humanity, instead of rebelling against the humanity within us that psychologically and within our nature, our fallen nature, gave way for those things to either be deceived into it or to be whispered to by the demonic to do it, or made us build it in our lack of morality and from our human selfish nature and hunger for power and control. It is not an external problem. The problem's you and me. In those people, the same problem that exists in world leaders serving Satan, that have been afflicted by the fallen ones, that lay dormant in you. And if they were not there, you may well be the one in that position if you haven't rebelled against the structures of Satan that exist inside your fallen meat suit, that exist inside this fallen body, and set the Christ free, the soul free from your body, so it can move in the will of unconditioned love, and with such a veracity, such a power of love in its heart, that temptation from the worldly matrix has no impact. In those moments where you are filled with the presence of the awakened state, of the presence of Christ, of the spiritual rebirth, temptation just has no flavour. None. But when you fall back into the 666 consciousness and you're a bit tired and achy, temptation has flavour again. But what about those who are the rulers of the free world, who clearly do not carry the Christic? I've seen the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, and I can guarantee his father does not carry the Christic, or those demons would not have controlled that man into such depravity. You see, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high places, and the mark of the beast you should worry about has got nothing to do with the future. It's the mark you take today. God bless, guys. I love you all. I was at the hospital last night with one of the children. He went into a series of very violent seizures and just wouldn't stop. So we took him, and I was thinking about you guys. I was thinking, some of these people, they'll just be waking up now and making their breakfast completely oblivious to the fact that because in their heart they decided to reach out and share with what we're doing for these children here. I was able to have fuel in my car and to be able to drive to the hospital with money for the bills to make sure that Joshua could get the treatment to put a stop to his seizures. Without intervention, he would have seizured possibly until death or until irreparable brain damage last night. And this place only exists because of you guys, and you have no idea what you've just done. At every given moment, I can't share what is happening, but at every given moment, when you share with us, you're the one healing them. That's what I was thinking while I was driving. While you're sleeping in your bed, or going about your daily work, oblivious to the idea that you're saving a child's life here. Pretty amazing. God bless.